Hello my flosstube friends and welcome back to my channel. Today is Friday, hooray for Friday, and I am sitting comfortably on my couch ready to do a few stitches on Astrology Cat, which, if you don't know, is the Heaven and Earth Design 2024 stitch along chart. Well, one of many charts. There are 10 in total, and there's a nice selection of people doing all sorts of different ones, so it looks like they've all been fairly popular, I'd say. And I've got quite a lot of progress done since my last stitch with me on this, which I think was 3 or 4 days ago. And if you want to see some stats, I'm actually now at 14.6% on this chart, and I've done 3,351 stitches. So that's not bad going, since it's only been 12 days since we started. I think that's pretty good. So at the moment, I've only got the first quarter of this chart, which is the first 22,000 stitches. And that's what we get given for the first quarter of the year, which is fine. And I started working in columns downwards, and then I proceeded to try a little diagonal over here. But unfortunately, somewhere around here, I got into a complete mess. I couldn't count to save my life, and it just went completely crazy. I couldn't count. And I think it's probably for the lack of a grid that things went a bit pear-shaped around here. So I kind of gave up, because you know, the last thing I want with this kind of thing is stress. I really do not need the stress. There's enough stress in life in general for you to have to sit down and stitch, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, and then find that it's, you know, an extra stress. So anything I find that I do starts to stress me out, I have to correct it and try to, you know, bring it to a form that I'm more comfortable with. So I wasn't getting on with the diagonal. I think there was a lot of, and one of the reasons is a lot of the colours are very same shade, all browns, and I was getting confused with the park threads. Yeah, if I'd had a grid there, it would have been easier. But I'm using 22 count. That's the one I've chosen to use. And I'm not very good at gridding myself. So I decided let's go back to doing the square blocks, which for me, somehow for my brain, is slightly easier for the counting. So when I came down this way, anyway, I left all these stitches unstitched because they are all the same colour. And I thought this is going to be nice just for filling in for something like a stitch with me, where you need to have some sort of focus, a little bit of attention thrown on it. Otherwise, you just start making a whole mess. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty good idea. Let's just leave a bit of block colour if we can. And then it's kind of easier to just relax into it, not have to worry about changing threads and stuff like that. Because the more threads you have to change when you're doing a stitch with me, the more likely it is that you're going to make a mistake, which is, yeah, just, that's kind of the way it rolls, I think. Some people are better at stitching and chatting, and some people not too bad, and others just can't do it at all. So I think that's the 3 categories you have with stitching and chatting. Oh dear. So yeah, I'm really sort of I am enjoying this stitch along. I find up here is a little bit crazy. Too many of the same colours can drive me a little bit crazy sometimes. But I'm liking the image even more, and I'm finding it interesting, especially these kind of circular things that are going around here. Really sort of interesting. And I do like spacey stuff as well. So having a mixture of planets or what have you, and a cat is sort of a nice, interesting combination. I don't know why it's called Astrology Cat. Is it something to do with the something to do with the Chinese New Year, where you have like a different animal per year, something like that? Or is it just purely inventive? I don't really know what cats mean astrology wise. So before I was working on a hoop, now I've kind of transitioned to a Q-snap again. I like using Q-snap. I find it quite relaxing to sort of stitch with a cushion on my lap and have this sort of balanced on it. But because I'm aiming to get a decent enough camera angle, I kind of have to prop it a bit more upright, which will put a strain on my hand at some point, but I think I can keep going for the short term. Don't expect me to do a couple of hours or anything like that in this position. My arm will start to get really sore. And I have successfully been able to actually stitch two-handed while having it on my lap, because I kind of just slip one hand underneath and rest the whole Q-snap on my arm. And if you get the positioning right, it's actually quite possible. I'm sure some people do it even. But let's see how we go. So there's been no sort of rush with my working this chart. I have been sort of sticking to what I'd said previously, which is I initially said 166 a day. 166 stitches a day will give me a chance to finish this chart by the end of the year, because that's exactly the amount I need every day to completely finish this chart by the end of the year. However, I started off on that mindset of doing 166 a day, and then I found that in practice it wasn't really practical, because like a couple of days, I actually didn't get as far as 166, and then I thought, well, what do I do now? Do I just go and add on those extra stitches to tomorrow and what have you? And it ended up being a little bit of a headache more than anything else. And then there was a couple of days where I was just starting to get into it, and I had already done 166, and I was thinking, do you know what, I could actually go on for a little bit longer, but I should stop because I've done 166. And then I thought, well, that's silly, because if I can do a little bit more, why shouldn't I be able to? So yeah, basically that ideology for me just didn't work out in practice. So then I decided, well, what's actually a good approximate amount for me on this chart, considering that I have goals on other whips I'm doing. So then I thought, well, if I do around 200 a day, around 200, that's a ballpark figure that I can live with. And that's actually been easier, because neither have I said to myself that I have to do 200. It's preferable, and neither have I said that that I can't do 200. So it's just a ballpark figure. So I've been averaging at doing, and this is really without being, thinking about it too much, sometimes 220, sometimes 197, sometimes 210, sometimes, so it's always been approximately around that figure. But I know that that's great, because it's always more than 166 anyway. So I do have that extra little bit every day. So kind of subconsciously, as long as I do the 166, I can go anywhere above that I want to, or not, which is a lot easier than trying to stick to an exact amount. So that's where I've been at. So I don't know how many over I am in terms of how many more have I done that I haven't needed to do. I think I'm thinking too much about this. It's once I start, this is what puts me off about the whole numbers game. Once I start saying I need to do so many stitches, I think about it way too much. I start to complicate it. It gets complicated beyond, my comfort. And then I think, this is getting silly. So Shut up, Carla, and just stitch. Okay, I know you haven't said that, but I've said that to myself, and that's probably what you're thinking. Just do it and stop worrying about numbers. Just do it. Just stitch a little bit every day and stop worrying. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's what I should be doing. Just trying to enjoy the flow, which I am actually. I'm enjoying it. But I have to say, I've been seeing people like racing ahead on this. I think somebody's actually finished their first quarter already after like 10 days. I mean, how on earth can you finish this in 10 days? I don't know whether these people are sleeping or they've taught themselves how to stitch while sleeping, or I don't know, because I mean, I've been putting in a good, at least a minimum of an hour, like 2 hours a day on this. 2 hours a day on just this chart to get where I am. Because it does take me a couple of hours to get 200 stitches because I'm doing full crosses. They're not all as easy going as this, just one colour. There's been a lot of colour changes up here. Then there's like the little interruptions, you know, people at the door, telephone calls, family members coming in and out, having to get up and cook, having to get up and do all little errands, having to go out. All of that stuff you get interrupted with. There's just no way I can sit down and not be interrupted for a sweep of time. At some point the cat will appear and she'll try to actually get on top of everything that I've got on my lap. So that's another interruption. But regardless, I think it's great if you can have finished all this. But for me, I don't want it to be a race. It's not a race. It's a participation in something that should be fun, interesting, cool. And that's how I'd like it to stay. And if there is any reason that I can't finish this cell, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to berate myself. It is just a hobby. It's a fun thing. But the aim is to get the 4 pages done. Now, if I get the 4 pages done, what's going on here with my needle? If I get the 4 pages done, I will get all 10 charts for free. All 10 that were offered to you to use, to pick one at the beginning. And I've looked through them all again. I'm thinking, would I actually stitch any of them later on? Like, would I actually do that? I don't know. I absolutely have no idea, because even if they like any of the other ones don't really appeal to me now, they might appeal to me a different day or a different year even. And I think that's totally possible. And that's another thing that I was thinking about recently. Somebody said in a floss tube that they'd purchased a chart, they'd started it, and after a couple of months, they decided they didn't want to continue because they totally lost interest, as you do. Totally lost interest can happen sometimes. And she put it away. And then a couple of years later, she totally fell back in love with it and then picked it out and started on it again. And I'm thinking, yes, I can totally get that. So even if I'm looking at a lot of these charts thinking, oh, they're not really grabbing me at the moment. I did have a certain interest in the Tinton Abbey, and I had a certain interest in the mushrooms I thought were pretty cute, but I couldn't see them hanging on my wall. So I just thought, oh no, I don't know. I don't think I'll pick up the mushroom ones, but they were colourful and they were quite sweet. So I'm thinking, who knows in the future if I might decide to pick one up. Maybe even do it for somebody else. You never know. So I don't think there's any harm in winning all the charts, even if you don't feel drawn to them right at this moment. You never know when you're going to feel drawn to them. Talking about drawn to something, I have mentioned this before in my last video, and I think it's worth mentioning again. If only just to prove that I'm a complete crackpot. So, talking about the freebie which Heaven and Earth Designs gave away, to us members that are doing this stitch along. I posted a community post saying that I really liked it and I was considering doing it at the start of next year. So that would give me a whole year to finish this one. And one of the HAEDs that I'm very, very close to finishing. So I will have gotten 2 of them out of the bag. And I thought, well, if I really like this freebie chart, why not start it then at the beginning of 2025? So I posted saying, and you can go back and see this post if you're interested. And I said, who would be interested in doing it as a stitch along? And I got a couple of positive replies. One coming from, I think it's Nadia from Dark Cross Stitch, Dark X Stitch. I think it's spelled like that. I think it's Nadia. And she straight away said she'd love to do it. So I'll link her channel below so you can go and visit her. She's got some amazing projects on the go at the moment. She does a lot of things. She also does diamond painting, which is something I've also got a few of those kits. I just never really got back into them. Never thrown them out, but still got them there if ever I decide to do diamond painting. And yeah, she's really nice to listen to when she's doing her stitch with me's and everything. So yeah, go pop over and give her some love. And I think there was another couple of ladies as well that expressed an interest. So what I've done is I've opened up a room, and but what I mean by room is if you go into Discord, if anybody's familiar with Discord, it's just another like community chat forum kind of thing. And there's a side menu with all sorts of different rooms, kind of like what you get on Facebook or something, where you get different groups, different subgroups, that kind of thing. So on the menu, there's all different things on the menu, like projects, general, stitch alongs, whip go, whatever it is where people want to post in different areas. And I've opened one up for this lady sewing in an interior is what I think. Sort of a strange name for a chart, but anyway, that's the name of it. And I've opened up this room, and I know it's very early to be opening up a room for chatting about a chart that I'm potentially not going to start for a year. But it's free. It doesn't cost anything. Discord is free. You can go in and just post and chat and whatever, and there's no harm in that. So I've opened it, posted the picture of the chart, and that's where I'm actually going to keep my intentions. So the information is there, and if any of you considering doing that free chart, I think you still can only claim it if you're doing this stitch along. I don't think you're going to be able to get access to it if you're just a Facebook group member. I think so far from what I've seen, you can only access that chart if you're doing this sale, which is a little bit of a pity actually, because it's beautiful and I think lots of people would like to stitch it. But anyway, HAED has their rules, I'm not going to argue with them. And so if you're doing this sale and you also want to do that chart, please do pop over and let us know, and it doesn't mean that you have to start at the same time as I've decided to start, or anybody else. If you want to start, if you're intending to start it now, or you're intending to start it in 6 months, you can still go into the stitch along room and you can still post your progress pics, which we'd all be, really grateful to see, because there's nothing nicer than seeing a chart that's been started and worked on that you yourself know you're going to come to at some point and start yourself, because then you get a head start in seeing how lovely it's coming together. And if there's any, tips and things that you might learn along the way, it's great to see. So yeah, there's that. So I'm going to put a link again in the description box to this Discord channel. There is a good number of my stitchy friends already in there. I don't think a lot of them will be doing it, but maybe some of them are expressing an interest and might go in and join. But yeah, you are more than welcome to come and join us. And as I said, I've put the link below, so just click on that. And if you don't have the Discord app, you'll be prompted to get it. Just another simple chat thing. It's totally free. Just you'll find yourself straight in there and go into the room. I've also got a room for this, Sal, by the way. There's a room where you can post your progress as well. I know a lot of people are posting their progress on the Facebook group, which is actually the official place. But in my community, if you want to just show your progress, you can do that. I've been posting a few updates on this one in there, and I think other members of the community have also been posting some pictures of their updates as well and progress. So yeah, I'm really enjoying seeing people's progress on a lot of things. So I was looking at Tintern Abbey again and seeing that chart in a new light. When I first looked at it, I wasn't 100% keen. I thought there was too much brown, and I didn't think that the crop, this is just my personal opinion, has no bearing on anybody else's opinion. Some people just loved it, wanted to start it straight away. I wasn't even familiar with this particular location anyway, so it didn't really strike me at first or grab me. And I thought there was a lot of brown in it, and I couldn't see where the focus was because there was like a little tiny image of somebody in the abbey, and it just looked, I don't know, it just didn't really grab me. Now I look at it again and I see it differently, and I find that interesting again. I'm thinking you can look at something and be totally unfazed, doesn't grab you, then you can look at it again after a length of time and see it in a different light. And I find that actually really interesting. So I've looked at it and thought, yeah, you know what? I like it more this time around that I've looked at it than I did the first time. Maybe the first time you look at something, you don't see all the details clearly. You don't pay as much attention to it. But when you look at something again and again, you give it more focus and more attention. Maybe that's it. So I'm thinking if I ever were to stitch any of those charts again, Tintern Abbey, the crop of that might be a contender, is a possible contender. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the stitch alongs, and I don't think I've left out any information there, have I? So what are you guys all going to be up to this weekend, and what are you going to be stitching on this weekend, I wonder? So tomorrow is Saturday, and it's supposed to be a lovely day for a change in Scotland this winter. We've had non-stop, mostly 90% grey coverage days, rain, frost, and it's been really, really cold lately. Our heating has been working overtime, and tomorrow is supposed to be sunny. So we decided we're going to get out and about. So tomorrow I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of stitching during the day because I'm going to meet a friend, have lunch, and just have a general little day trip out. So there'll be no stitch alongs or anything alongs. It'll just be a nice day, getting some fresh air and getting a little break actually, because I don't know about you, but if I do too much stitching for too long, I go a little bit stir crazy. I do. I need to recalibrate, I need to get out, I need to talk to people, I need to do something else. And yeah, so I've had a lot more social stuff going on already than I've had in ages, partly due to me making a bit more effort, I think. And also, I'm looking forward to going to there's a group that meet up or intending to meet up that it's a bunch of cat owners. So I thought that would be interesting. I can go and speak to people who love cats as much as I love my cat. And, you know, we can talk all things about cats, and that will be fun for an hour or so. So I'm looking forward to going to a cat owners meetup. That should be interesting. And then there's a knitting group that I also stopped going to just before Christmas, and I think I'll go back to that again. So yeah, I think it's nice I always like connecting with people that are as creative as I am, or even more creative. Sometimes I find people who are even more creative, and I think, my goodness, this person has surpassed me with the amount of crafts that they do. I do crochet, knitting, and, well, stitching, obviously. I've dabbled in painting. I do drawing, but I do mostly digital drawing. And I always think, gosh, you know, I'm like multi-crafty. But then I go and meet other people who do the same thing I do, and then they also do things like basket weaving, flower pressing, metallic painting. Yeah, and I think, my God, how can they do so much? Where do they get all the hours in the day? And they do loads of things, more than I'm doing. And just when you think it's not possible, there you go. Everything's possible. Everything is possible. It's just a bit crazy. It's so good to see people really enjoying their crafts. Okay, come on now. I'm getting to the end of this thread now, which is getting a bit more difficult. Trying to hold this thing. So it still kind of feels like I'm at the very beginning of this. I know I've done a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot, really, to be honest. When you see, especially if you go in and start seeing how much other people have done, it puts you to shame a little bit. You think, well, I thought I was doing fantastic until I looked up what other people were doing, and then suddenly you see they're like all the way over to here, and they've done the whole arch, and they've done like a whole planet in the middle, and you think, my goodness. What I've seen a lot of people doing is the cross country on this one. Actually, it seems to be a lot more popular than, say, the method I'm doing, which is just filling in little areas like this, mostly working columns. That I've seen as being more popular at the moment, the cross country, which is definitely faster, no question, because you don't have to keep stopping all the time to change your threads. So there is that. But leaving a big sort of area like this to do in one colour is actually quite fulfilling. I was really sort of excited about going and doing a diagonal, and then it just kind of didn't pan out well, which is a shame. I think I'm going to save the diagonals for the gridded fabric that I have. So when I start the free chart in January, God willing that I'll be okay and able for it in January, I've decided I'm going to do 2 strands over 1/10 stitch on 25 count gridded fabric, because that's the fabric that A, already has the grid, B, I'm totally fine with 25 count, and C, in that respect, I can do diagonal stitching if I want to, because the grid helps me count better in diagonals. I'm not great at counting in diagonals. I enjoy the process of it, but I find that I make mistakes when I'm going in a slanted direction. Especially if a lot of the colours are similar shades. I start parking them and I miss out one line for another line, and I overcount or undercount. It just, whatever reason, it just confuses me a little bit. And I've noticed that a few times. So that's my intention. My other intention, again, with starting that chart in January, is I'm going to shave off the first top row of pages because I feel like it's a huge chart for a start. I would have liked it slightly smaller, but then looking at the chart, I personally feel that the top part of that chart, just where the first line of pages go across, is not really necessary. And I still think it's going to be a gorgeous picture when I'm not just going to like chop it at the top of a head, but a little bit further down from the top and knock off just a bit of that bookshelf in the very top section, which is quite dark, I think, and isn't really a lot going on there. But what I do, and I think this is a clever thing to do as well, is I'm not going to recalculate that fabric wise and start at the very top where I can't add that bit on later if I wanted to. I'm definitely going to leave space at the top of my fabric in case I want to add that later on, in case I've changed my mind and said, oh, I wish I had started at the very top, not, cropped it, just to be on the safe side. I'm going to start the chart a page down, but I'm going to leave enough fabric at the top to be able to fill in that page later at the end if I feel that I want to go back and do that top section instead of cropping it. So it basically gives me leeway. So I don't feel afraid of doing it because I can finish the chart, finish the design, and then go back and do the row of pages at the top if I feel that they really are necessary or that I think they might look better. Whatever reason, they will be the last to be done if I decide to do them. And I think that's kind of a safe way to go about it. So I make sure that the fabric I have is long enough to include that top row of pages. I kind of recommend that to anybody who's cropping anything. Like, it's fine to crop stuff, but you never know if later on when you finish the design, whether you're going to really appreciate it as much as you thought, or whether you want to go back and say, well, I think I actually do prefer it as a full chart. In which case, you won't be able to do that if you've done the whole thing and you haven't left space. Oh, why is my camera shaking if I'm not even touching it? If you haven't left any space, you're not going to be able to do that. So there's a tip for you. Crop what you're stitching, but don't crop the fabric, basically. I think that makes sense. So that's the plan there. I do love these blues. These blues are gorgeous. Really nice. I like whatever way they've done it, or maybe it's because whatever way the little tiny bit of fabric shows through, very little of it. Kind of looks like twinkling stars. If I hadn't mentioned, this is 22 count that I'm working, and I'm doing, as you can see, I'm doing one strand. One strand, I mentioned a few videos ago, can be a little bit spindly and difficult when it wants to be. Like everything. So far I have done 20 stitches. Woohoo! Isn't that fantastic? At this rate, I'm going to be sitting here for about 6 hours to get my 200 done. And this is me working one colour, right? Just imagine if I had to be changing colours. But to be honest, I'm not trying to work particularly fast. I'm really sort of relaxed into it and going fairly slowly at this one. In fact, I tend to generally go pretty slowly like this if I'm doing something else as well as stitching, like listening to an audiobook or watching something on TV, because if I rush it, if I'm watching TV, I will mess it up. And I do just want to relax, so I only want to give like 80% of my attention to the stitching and the rest of it to the TV. So something has to give a little bit. So I'll slow down a bit, be more cautious. And it's not a rush anyway. It's not a rush, so I don't want it to feel like I'm in a huge rush. Because then I'll start to resent it, and I don't want to resent it. I'm enjoying it. And I think that you've got to find your happy place with your projects, haven't you? If you can't find your happy place with your projects, you'll be wanting to put them down. What's this little piece of... Oh, that's the thread I cut from before. Okay. So this is a nice area to actually work when you're watching Netflix. Because you can't go wrong, can you? You're all doing the same colour. So when I go now, I'm actually going to try and finish this whole area. That will be enough stitching on this piece for today. I've just gone up the wrong hole. That'll be enough stitching today on this piece. Then I think I'm going to work on, I think I might do a little bit of Riverwalk charm this afternoon. And then tonight I plan to do a little bit of knitting because I'm so far behind on my knitting projects. I have about, I don't know, 9 projects on the go that I still haven't finished, that have just been rolling over and rolling over. And I have been getting them out and doing a little bit of them, but it's just not enough. So the first thing I want to finish is a baby blanket for a friend who's due to have her baby in a couple of months, and I want to get that finished. And it's very close to being finished. I only have a little bit left to do, but I just have to do it. You know, just if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. I just have to bring it out and do it. And then I've got like a cozy cardigan that I started at the end of last year that I'd like to get a bit further with. And then there is like another cardigan, and then there's like something else, and a scarf, and all these projects, and they're all sort of stuck in different project bags. And I just want to start getting things out. You know, I want to start finishing things and not starting new things, because what happens to me is I start browsing patterns and then I get excited about them and I start them and I get halfway through or whatever, and then they end up back in the same cupboard with all the other whips. Does this sound familiar to you? Back in the cupboard with all the other whips. And then it doesn't get to come out again for about 5 months. And then I think, oh, after a while, I look inside the cupboard and I open a bag and I think, I didn't even remember starting this. I don't remember. In fact, it's been so long since I knitted on this, I've forgotten how to do it. So I have to go back and reread all the instructions again to remember, try and remember where I was, which row. I do put the instructions in the project bag, and I often have, you know, pieces of paper that say which row I'm on and everything else. But I have to read the whole thing again to familiarize myself with where I left off. That's particularly more awkward when you're doing something with a lot of cables and a lot of sort of advanced kind of stitching, knit stitches and stuff. So yeah, it's not great. I mean, I used to be able to, being the main word, I used to be able to start a project and finish it. Even if it took me 8 months, I would start it and then I would finish it. It would never occur to me to start something else. So what is it about us now that we're just so into starting new things. I think it's the way culture has kind of spoiled us with so much and so much potential, that we can do so many different things. Like, we don't have to, learning that we don't have to continue with something without, we don't have to wait until we start something new. We've been spoiled. And I think once you get into that habit of starting things, it's hard to get out of that habit, to be honest. I think some of you will agree there that you have to be quite self-disciplined to actually finish things and not start new ones. So yeah, I'm trying to be a bit self-disciplined, and that's the reason why I'm very excited about starting this chart in January. But I'm also very disciplined about, or I'm trying very hard to just finish off the 2 that I want to finish this year. And then I will feel happier about it, I think, going forward. It would just be easier on my brain, to be honest, to say. I can now spare the time for it because I've got rid of 2 that I was putting a lot of time into. Although if I don't finish this chart by the end of the year, I don't really know what's going to happen with that. I mean, if I only get the 4 pages done, am I going to be disciplined enough to finish the chart? Because I don't think I'll want it to stay at 4 pages forever. I think I'll actually want to finish the chart. So if it carries on until the year after this one, then it's just going to be another whip to do, isn't it? But anyway, the other thing that I'm hooked on this year is positivity, and I just want to look at things a bit more positively than last year. And it's been really good doing that, writing down positive things that you're grateful for, kind of does help you in every situation, especially challenging ones. So with that, I think I'm sort of going to stop here, grab a break, and I hope you've enjoyed stitching along with me today. I've certainly enjoyed having a little chat with you. So I wish you a happy weekend, whatever you're doing, whatever you plan to do. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get some good weather. And yeah, come and let me know what it is you're working on, how far you've got. What are you thinking about this stitch along if you're doing this stitch along? Are you still enjoying it? Are you still in for the finish, or are you just going along at your own pace? Yeah, let me know. I'd be interested. So I'll be back soon again, and I will come back at the end of the month with a flosstube update. Hopefully before then, I'll surely come back and do a little bit more stitching on this one with you. So until then, my friends, have a great time, and I will see you again. God bless. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.